Ever wondered what comes after we've cashed in our chips? Well, near-death experiences, NDEs, might give us a sneak peek. While some people report simply floating above their bodies like they're starring in their own out-of-body movie, others describe something more profound. Imagine you're on the brink, hovering between life and death, when suddenly you find yourself floating above your hospital bed, watching the doctors work on you like it's a weird episode of Grey's Anatomy. You're watching your own personal episode, except this one has no commercial breaks and you're the star of the show. Speaking of weird, some folks report cruising down a tunnel toward a bright light. This is where things get real cinematic. I'm talking dramatic zooms, heavenly glow, the works. It's like the universe put together a VIP afterlife entrance, complete with mood lighting, and just when you think you're about to reach the end of the tunnel, where presumably there's a cosmic DJ playing Stairway to Heaven, boom! You get yanked back to your body like you weren't on the guest list after all. And it's not just the light in tunnels. Oh no, it gets better. Many people talk about meeting long-lost relatives, but not just any family members, only the ones you actually liked. Uncle Joe, who you haven't thought about since he dropped that weird casserole at Thanksgiving, 93, is suddenly your spiritual tour guide. And let's be honest, everyone looks great in the afterlife. Aunt Edna, who loved cake more than air, now looks like she's been hitting the celestial Pilates classes. Honestly, if everyone looks that good post-death, I'd start eating more cake myself. But here's the real kicker. Not everyone gets the deluxe NDE package. Some people report absolutely nothing. Nada. Zilch. It's like death took them to a party, and they slept through the whole thing. Imagine telling your friends, yeah, I had a near-death experience and it was boring. No lights, no tunnels, just an extended nap. Others, meanwhile, come back with tales so wild you'd think they took a round trip to the Twilight Zone. It's like the universe is running a cosmic lottery, and some folks get the jackpot, while others just get a free keychain. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Among the more profound NDEs, individuals sometimes report seeing visions that align perfectly with their spiritual or religious beliefs. For some, it's not just about the tunnel or a vague feeling of peace. They'll describe encounters with a brilliant light they recognize as Jesus Christ, often accompanied by a sensation of overwhelming love and serenity. This particular type of vision usually resonates deeply with those who believe in heaven as the ultimate afterlife destination, where believers are welcomed with open arms. It's not just about meeting long-lost relatives, but about glimpsing the spiritual realm they've always had faith in. For these individuals, the experience offers a comforting validation of their beliefs, leaving them with a renewed sense of peace and purpose. Meanwhile, others simply get to hang out with a glowing dog or meet family members who somehow have perfect abs in the afterlife. It seems like the afterlife might just be custom built for each of us, depending on what we need to see, or maybe what we're ready for. And let's not forget the life review. Picture this. As you're about to cross into the great beyond, the universe decides it's time for a highlight reel of your greatest hits and misses. Remember that awkward time you waved at someone who wasn't actually waving at you? That's in there. The time you tripped on nothing and tried to play it cool. Oh yeah, front and center. It's basically the ultimate blooper reel of your life, and you're the star of the show. If there's one thing worse than dying, it's dying and being forced to rewatch all your cringiest moments in HD. But let me tell you about Jim, because Jim had one of the best near-death experiences I've ever heard.
From somewhere inside of me, Joni, that I didn't even know still existed.
Wow.
I became instantly aware of all the time I had wasted and all the help that I could have been to people and all the kindness I should have shown. And instead, I was completely absorbed in my own wealth and arrogance. And I cried out, God, forgive me.
Those
God,
three words.
Forgive me.
So, Jim was a normal guy, liked his morning coffee, worked a regular job, and had zero interest in the afterlife. That is, until he found himself floating above his hospital bed, watching the doctors perform CPR on him after a heart attack. At first, Jim thought he was dreaming. He hovered there, casually observing, when suddenly his grandmother, who'd passed away years ago, appeared next to him. She looked just like she did when he was a kid, except as Jim later described, she was glowing like a Christmas ornament, but, without the tacky flashing lights. Anyway, Grandma didn't say much at first. She just smiled, took him by the hand, and led him toward that infamous tunnel of light. Jim was starting to feel pretty zen about the whole situation when suddenly, out of nowhere, a random golden retriever came bounding through the tunnel. Jim looked at his grandma, and she just shrugged as if to say, "Yeah, dogs are part of the afterlife too. Obviously." The golden retriever then began circling Jim excitedly, wagging its tail like it had just found its long-lost human. Jim, confused, said, "I don't even own a dog." But the retriever didn't seem to care. It was thrilled to be there. And honestly, who's going to question a glowing dog when you're halfway to the afterlife? Just as Jim was about to ask if the dog came with some cosmic leash, he heard a voice from behind, calling him back to his body. It was the doctor shouting, "Jim, stay with us." And before he knew it, Jim was back in his hospital bed with Grandma and the dog fading into the background. The best part? When Jim told his family about it later, his wife reminded him that his great-grandparents had owned a golden retriever, and they always said it would wait for them in heaven. So maybe Jim's spirit guide just had 4 legs instead of wings. Who knew? Whether or not you believe Jim's story, you've got to admit, if the afterlife has dogs, it's already better than a lot of places on Earth. And that's the thing with NDEs. Whether you float out of your body, see a celestial pup, or just get a cosmic nap, they remind us how weird and wonderful life and death can be. So, next time death knocks on your door, maybe you'll get more than just darkness. You might just get the weirdest, most delightful story of your life or afterlife. But wait, if you think that's the end of our NDE journey, hold on to your socks, because some NDEs go way off script. Take Martha, for example, who insists she saw Elvis during her near-death experience. Yeah, the king himself, hanging out by a cosmic jukebox wearing his iconic white jumpsuit. According to Martha, Elvis didn't sing or anything, but he did give her a thumbs up and a wink before she got pulled back to Earth.
So I see a figure standing in front of me as I'm walking, and they've got their back to me. And I walk up a little bit closer, and I get within about 5 or 6 feet from them, and they turn around, and I see it's Elvis. Elvis, it's great to see you. I don't know about everybody's NDE or near-death experiences. In mine, he turned around and he said something, but his mouth didn't move. It was like I could hear his thoughts. He said, "Billy, it's great to see you." He reached out.
And then there's the case of Frank, who claims his NDE took him to a celestial game show. Yep, a full-on game show. Frank described standing on a stage surrounded by other contestants, with an audience cheering from what seemed to be an ethereal stadium. The host, who Frank insists looks suspiciously like Bob Barker, asked him trivia questions about his life. Answer correctly, and Frank would move forward. Answer wrong, and well, Frank woke up in his hospital bed before he found out what the grand prize was. But according to Frank, the Afterlife game show had all the trimmings: neon lights, applause, even a spinning wheel. The best part? Frank says he never lost his sense of humor through the whole ordeal, joking that the price was almost right, but apparently my time wasn't. So, whether you're seeing dogs, Elvis, or playing a celestial game show, NDEs continue to be the strangest reality check ever. They remind us that the line between life and whatever comes next is a lot blurrier than we think. If nothing else, they show us that death isn't just the end. It might just be the beginning of some really, really weird stories. But here's the best part. Whether you experience tunnels, lights, long-lost relatives, or just an afterlife dog waiting to lick your face, one thing is clear. NDEs tend to leave people more appreciative of life. Imagine being handed the ultimate second chance card. People who've come back often say they're no longer afraid of death, but instead, in love with life. They talk about seeing things in a new light. Every sunrise is a little brighter, and every moment with loved ones more precious, and every belly laugh feels just a bit deeper. Maybe the biggest message from all these NDEs is that life is a wild, wonderful ride, and it's worth savoring every single second. So, if you've ever needed a reason to live fully, passionately, and without fear, take it from those who've danced on the edge of existence. There's always a chance for a new beginning. You might not know what comes after life, but one thing is for sure, you're here now, and that's something worth celebrating. Because at the end of the day, life itself is the greatest story of all. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share any NDE experiences you've had in the comments.